Yaswanubhavam akila shrutisāramekam adhyatmadīpam atititirshyatam tamondam samsārinām karunayāha purāna-guhyam tam vyāsasūrum upayāmi gurum munīnām yam pravajantam anapetam apetakrityam dvaipāyano viraha kātara ajuhāvā putreti tanmayataya taravobhinedustam sarvabhuta hridayam munimanatosmi. Śrīmad Bhāgavatam nama puranam loka vishrutam shunuyat shraddhaya yuktah mama santosha karanam. We are relishing the 6th skanda of Śrīmad Bhāgavatam. The 6th canto of Śrīmad Bhāgavatam highlights the principle of poshana, the causeless act of nourishment of Bhagavan. Poshana is nourishment. In the 6th skanda, we get to understand how Bhagavan ceaselessly protects us and nourishes us. He is the source of all nourishment and support. And we also get to realize the significance of Bhagavat Kripa, His grace. The first 3 adhyayas of 6th canto deal with the glories of Bhagavan Nama. Nama Mahima is the theme that runs through the first 3 adhyayas. And it is in this context we also relished Ajamila Charitra. The 4th adhyaya of the 6th canto presents a very important stotra, which is popularly celebrated as Haṁsa-guhya stotra. A very interesting name, Haṁsa-guhya. Guhya means secret. Hamsa can mean a swan or the one who is pure, the one who is transcendental. So it is the secret of those who are transcendental, the secret of the supreme bhaktas, the prayer offered by supreme bhaktas. Haṁsa-guhya stotra. What is the difference between an ordinary bhakta and a supreme bhakta, a Hamsa, a Paramahamsa? What is the difference? Of course, bhakti is a process of purification. So any bhakta has embarked on the path of purification. A Paramahamsa is one who has reached that exalted state of purification, one who is completely purified. For an ordinary bhakta, devotion is a part of life. For a Paramahamsa, devotion is the very purpose of life. For an ordinary bhakta, Krishna is the fulfiller of all his desires. For a Paramahamsa, Krishna is the very fulfillment of all desires. Here in the 6th canto of Śrīmad Bhāgavatam, we get to relish the prayers offered by Daksha Prajapati, which is celebrated as Haṁsa-guhya stotra. Now, who is this Daksha Prajapati? Now, we have already covered Daksha's Charitra earlier. Interestingly, Daksha Prajapati takes birth 2 times. Earlier we saw the Charitra of Daksha Prajapati. Daksha is the Manasa Putra of Brahma. And he marries Prasuti. Prasuti is one of the daughters of Swayambhuva Manu and Shatarupa. Swayambhuva Manu and Shatarupa begot 2 sons, Priyavrata, Uttanapada, and 3 daughters. Akuti, Devahuti, Prasuti. Prasuti married Daksha Prajapati, whose daughter was Sati, who married Shiva. This charitra is covered earlier in Śrīmad Bhāgavatam. The Daksha Prajapati takes birth again. This time he takes birth as the son of the Prachetasas. Now, who are the Prachetasas? Now, in the lineage of Uttanapada comes Prithu Maharaj. Prithu also happens to be Bhagavan's another avatar. Prithu's son was Antardhana, whose son was Havirdhana. Havirdhana's son was Prachina Barhis. And Prachina Barhis' sons are Prachetasas, who married Marisha and begot Daksha Prajapati. So in the 6th skanda, we get to see the birth of Daksha Prajapatis. Now, Prajapatis are those who are entrusted with the responsibility of multiplying progeny, of increasing population. And Daksha Prajapati is one of the prominent Prajapatis. Daksha Prajapati, realizing the responsibility entrusted upon him, prays to Narayana. It is in this context takes birth the brilliant prayers celebrated as Haṁsa-guhya stotra. Daksha Prajapati, the son of Marisha and the Prachetasas, upon accepting his responsibility as a Prajapati, he prays, he performs severe austerities, and he prays to Narayana. And he begins his glorious prayers by celebrating Bhagavan's Paratva, his transcendental nature. The interesting part of Haṁsa-guhya stotra is Daksha elaborates the Paratva of Bhagavan, and in that process highlights how difficult it is for us to comprehend him, to know him and to attain him. And it is by extolling the Paratva of Bhagavan, he offers his prayers. Namah paraya avitatanubhutaye gunatrayabhasa nimitta bandhave adrishtadhamne gunatattva buddhibihi nivrittamayaya dadhesvayambhuve. He celebrates Bhagavan's transcendental nature. Bhagavan transcends Prakriti. Prakriti, which is made of 3 gunas. Namah paraya, you are supreme because you are beyond everything. Mattah parataram nanyat kinchidasti dhananjaya. Mattah parataram nanyat. There is nothing which is equal or superior to Bhagavan. He transcends everything, and he transcends this material creation made up of the 3 gunas. Gunatrayabhasa nimitta bandhave. He not only transcends, but at the same time, he also controls. He governs. His governance is very mysterious, not easy to comprehend. While he is beyond this world, somehow he seems to have a grip on the workings of this world. The orchestration of whatever happens in this world seems to be completely within his purview. Adrishtadhamne gunatattva buddhibihi. Adrishtadhamne. Therefore, those who are conditioned in this material world, all the baddha jivas, all the jivatmas associated with Prakriti, embodied, and therefore, because of this association, those who have their knowledge curtailed by the 3 modes of gunas, it becomes very difficult for those baddha jivas to know him, to see him, to perceive him. even to be aware of him, he says. Nivrittamanaya dadhe swayambhuve. Nivrittamanaya. Daksha interestingly describes Bhagavan's paratva, his infinite nature. He says, Nivrittamanaya, one who has surpassed all material measurements, he says, all material calculations. It becomes very difficult for us to measure his limitless glories. Nivrittamanaya. No, he is not subject to our intellectual speculations. We cannot analyze him through our intellect. We cannot subject him to our intellectual speculations. No, this is what is sometimes called the frog philosophy. No, trying to analyze Bhagavan through our intellect can be compared to a frog philosophy. What is a frog philosophy? It seems there were two frogs who met in a well, who always happened to be living all the time in the well. And then a third frog jumped in from outside. And it said, you know what? Outside this well, far away, there is an ocean. And then the other frog, which has been living in this well forever, looks at the new frog and says, is it? What is the ocean? The new frog says, look at the water around in this well. The ocean is something similar, but massive in scale. So the first frog asks, is the ocean 10 times larger than this this well? The frog says, not really. Is it 100 times more? Not really. Is it 1,000 times more? It goes on trying to put a number and measure the dimensions of an ocean, which we all know is going to be impossible for the frog. Similarly, Bhagavan, Nivrittamanaya, one who has surpassed all measurements which are material, all material calculations. He is not subject to our intellectual analysis. We cannot know him, perceive him purely by speculation, purely through our intellect alone. Nivrittamanaya dadhe swayambhuve. He is swayambhu. He is causeless. He is akhila karana. At the same time, he is nishkarana. He is the cause of all causes, but he has no cause. He is nishkarana. Swayambhu. He is one who is causeless. And therefore, the one who is causeless, who is the cause of all causes, such a one, for us, the effects of the cause it becomes very difficult to know him and comprehend him. To such a supreme being, I offer my prayers, says Daksha. That's the Hamsa Guhya, begins by prayers offered to glorifying the Paratva of Bhagavan. Nayasya sakyam purusho avaiti sakyuhu sakhavasansam masatah puresmin gunoyata gunino vyakta drishte tasmai maheshaya namaskaromi. Tasmai maheshaya namaskaromi. Hey Narayana, you are Mahesha. Maha, Isha, Mahesha. One who is the supreme controller. Now in the earlier shloka, he was celebrated as the supreme controller, one who controls, who mysteriously controls the entire creation. Now, who is that mysterious controller, who controls, who governs this entire creation? He further elaborates. He says, Nayasya sakyam purusho avaiti sakyuhu sakhavasansam asatah puresmin gunoyata gunino vyakta drishte tasmai maheshaya namaskaromi. Gunoyata gunino vyakta drishte. He gives a nice analogy here. Gunaha, guninaha. Gunaha, the objects of our sense perception, all the objects around. Guninaha, the respective sense organs. Now the sense organs perceive the sense objects, but the sense objects do not know how they are perceived by the respective sense organs. While the sense organs perceive the respective sense objects, an eye perceives an object and its color and its shape, but that object does not know how the eye is able to perceive it. Similarly, just like how the sense objects are unable to know how they are perceived by the respective sense organs, Daksha says, hey Bhagavan, the Atman indwelling in the body is unable to perceive you even though you are the Sakha of the Atman, he says. He says, Nayasya Sakyam Purusho Avaiti Shakyuhu Shakhavasansam Vasatah Puresmin Puraha. This body, the Atman has been traveling forever in this body. The bodies keep changing from one Janma to the next. The body, the shape, the configuration of the body keeps changing. The body made of Prakriti keeps changing, but nevertheless, it is a body made out of Prakriti. The Atman has been traveling in this body from one life after the other, and interestingly, there is a companion who also has been traveling along with this body, along with this Atman in the same body. Whichever body the Atman takes, the Atman, there is a companion to the Atman. Not just an ordinary companion, a companion who is the well-wisher of the Atman, the best friend of the Atman. He says, yes, Nayasya Sakyam Purusho Avaiti Shakyuhu Sakhavasansam Vasatah Puresmin. The best friend has always been accompanying. Wherever we go, in whichever Janma, Bhagavan accompanies us all the time. He is with us constantly. In the body, along with the Atma, Paramatma also dwells together constantly. Unfortunately, the Atma does not realize, does not recognize the presence of the Paramatma. Does not recognize the presence of the Paramatma, and in that process does not realize that in reality it is the Paramatma who is the supreme controller. The Atman residing in the body believes that it is the controller. It is trying to control the body. It is trying to control its actions. It is trying to govern its life. But it fails to understand. Just like how the objects of senses fail to perceive how they are perceived by the senses, similarly, the Atman fails to perceive the controllership of Paramatma, the Sakha, the best friend. It is like, imagine we've been driving in a car all along and traversing through various routes, and then we realize we are not alone. We have never been alone. There's always been a companion who has been mysteriously guiding us all the time. And not only that, we also realize that the car has two steering wheels. We think we are actually in control, driving the car with a steering wheel. But the car actually has two steering wheels. One is invisible, but that is invincible. That is the steering wheel of Bhagavan, the Paramatma, who is actually in control. He is the one who is in control. He is the one who has been directing. He is the one who has been governing. But we do not realize that. Now, when we look around, we are able to do all our actions in a world which is around us, which is mysteriously in order. We are generally not aware, we do not recognize who is orchestrating everything around. Somehow things seem to be in place from the time we wake up in the morning. There is oxygen for us to breathe. There is light for us to see. There are things in place. There is a roof on top of us. Everything that we need to use, the resources which were there yesterday seems to be there today as well. The body seems to be intact. We seem to be able to do several things which we have not planned for. Things seem to happen around us. Things seem to happen. Everything seems to be governed. This world is an orderly world. Even though now and then it seems to be chaotic, there could be temporary disorders, but by and large, even when there is a disorder, there is a course correction. This world is in order because it is governed by Bhagavan, who ensures that everything is in order. He is the supreme controller. He is in control of everything. Right at this moment, when things unfold, they are unfolding as they should. Everything happens for good because Bhagavan is orchestrating every moment as it unfolds. Daksha here therefore says, unfortunately, the conditioned soul, the embodied Atman, fails to recognize the Paramatma who has been traveling with him all the time through every life. Tasmai Maheshai Namaskaromi. I offer my prayers to that glorious Paramatma who has been my Sakha. No, to even recognize that he is my Sakha is not easy. First is to recognize that he is my companion. Second is to recognize that he is in control and not me. The steering wheel that I have has limitations. The steering wheel that he holds in the car has no limitations. He has complete control, whereas I have limited control. Now, over and above, to realize that actually he is my Sakha, he is my well-wisher, he is my only well-wisher, not just a well-wisher, he is my only well-wisher. That recognition takes time. It is not easy to be rooted in that awareness. But even without that knowledge, Daksha says, one must always offer prayers to Bhagavan. One may not experience his controllership, but one must know that he is the ultimate controller and offer our prayers to him as the supreme controller. Deho savoksha manavo bhuta matram atmanamanyam cha vidupparam yat sarvam puman veda gunamscha tajño naveda sarvajñam anantamide. Here again he gives a beautiful analogy here. Deha asavaha aksha manavaha bhuta matram atmanamanyam cha vidupparam yat. Now, all the achit tattvas, deha, the body, the physical body, asavaha, the prana, the life force, aksha, the senses, manavaha, the mind, bhuta, panchabhutas, matras, the tanmatras, all are products of Prakriti. Now, all the products of Prakriti they belong to the realm of achit tattva, which means they are insentient, devoid of any knowledge, which means they do not know that they are being controlled. They are under control of a sentient being. They are insentient. They do not realize that they are not aware that they are being controlled. They have no knowledge. They are achit tattva. They do not have the awareness of being controlled. But Atma, which is Chit Tattva, which has knowledge, should ideally be aware that it has some control over Achit Tattva and it is being controlled by the Paramatma. Atmanam anyam cha vidupparam yat. Krishna in the Gita says, Idam shariram kaunteya kshetramitya vidhiyate. Etatvo vettitam prahu kshetrajña iti tatvidaha. Kshetra kshetrajña. Kshetra achit tattva. The body, the physical body, the deha, all the indriyas, the sense organs, the panchabhu, all that belong to achit tattva, which is kshetra, the body. The body which is the instrument, the cultivable land, which is compared to a cultivated land. And this body is acquired by the Atman for the sake of experiencing its own karma. And that Atman which acquires the Kshetra is called Kshetrajña, the knower of the Kshetra. While the Kshetra, which is Achit Tattva, cannot know by itself because it has no knowledge. Deha savoksha manavo bhuta matram. Being Achit Tattva, the body by itself is not aware. It has no knowledge, no awareness. It is the Atman, which is the Kshetrajña, is aware and it has some control over the body. Atmanam anyacha viduh param yat. And then Daksha says, Sarvam puman veda gunamscha tajñoho naveda sarvagya anantamide. Naveda sarvagya anantamide. Now, the kshetrajna, while he knows the kshetra, he may not know the sarvagya who knows all the kshetras. Kshetrajnam chapimam vidhi sarva kshetreshu bharata. Kshetra kshetrajnayo jnanam tat yatta jnanam matam mama, Krishna says. Krishna introduces the one along with the kshetrajna. There is another indweller in every kshetra. He is the sarvagya. While the individual kshetrajna, the Atman, knows one kshetra, the body in which it dwells, the sarvagya knows every other body because he is indwelling, he pervades and permeates every kshetra across creation. And sarvam puman veda gunamscha tajñoho naveda sarvagyam anantamide. Now, the kshetrajna, the Atman, knows the body, but even after knowing the body, realizing the body and knowing the distinction, it may end up not being aware of the ultimate controller who is also indwelling together with it within the same body, the sarvagya. And only when one realizes the sarvagya, only then the Atman can begin to disassociate itself from the body. To that sarvagya, I offer my prayers, declares Daksha Prajapati. Yadoparamo manaso nama rupa rupasya drishtasmriti sampramoshad yate kevalaya swasamsthaya hamsaya tasmai shuchi sadmane namaha. Shuchi sadmane namaha. Hamsaya tasmai shuchi sadmane namaha. Hamsaya. He is referring to Bhagavan as Hamsaya here, the one who is supremely pure. Tasmai, unto him. Shuchi sadmane, who is only realized, the one who is purity personified can be only realized by a pure mind. Shuchi sadmane, one who is realized when one is in a pure state of spiritual existence. To such a personification of purity, to such a embodiment of purity, I offer my prayers, Daksha says. Yado paramo manaso nama rupa rupasya drishtasmriti sampramoshat iyate kevalayasva samsthaya hamsaya tasmai shuchi sadmane namaha. Here, Daksha, in this prayer, is talking about how unless the mind is properly prepared, Bhagavan will not reveal himself. Bhagavan reveals himself in our mind, but the mind needs to be ready. Now, the mind, we go through three states in our day-to-day life and living. Our wakeful state, and our dream state, and our deep sleep state. Now, in the wakeful state, in the mind, we keep creating and recreating the world all the time. Or the world of names and forms keeps getting manifested in our mind. You may wonder, why am I saying the world is getting manifested in our mind? That it is true, irrespective of what is out there externally, each of us have our own worlds in our own minds. And depending on our own karma vasanas, we have different worlds in which we operate. We may all think we are operating in the same physical world, but in reality we are all operating in different worlds, material worlds. Because the way the world keeps manifesting repeatedly, the names and forms that manifest in the mind keeps changing depending on our own karma vasanas. Yadoparamo manaso nama rupa rupasya drishtasmriti sampramoshat. Now, even when we go to sleep, this repeated manifestation of the world of names and forms does not stop. This is what is called the dream state. The Indriyas possibly have come to a state of stillness, but then the mind is still active. So the manifestation of the world is still happening. Even if we close our eyes and close our ears, but there is still activity happening in the mind. Names, the world of names and forms still is active. We are still agitated. We are as much agitated when we were awake as we are in our dream state. So even then, in both the states, we are unaware of the presence of Bhagavan. We are unaware of the Paramatma. When we reach the Sushupti stage, yes, the manifestation, repeated manifestation of the names and forms of this world stops, and it is in that state that Bhagavan, Narayana, embraces us. We are in embrace. We are in embrace, and that is the reason why we get recharged. But even in that state, while we are in embrace of Paramatma, we are still not aware of him. We are enjoying the bliss, but still that revelation has not still happened to us. How can that revelation happen? How do we realize him? This is where he says, Ya iyate kevala, he says, Rupasya drishti smriti sampramosha. The repeated manifestation of the world of forms and names in our mind has to cease completely, and the mind needs to get absorbed in Krishna. Now, the cessation of this activity in the mind can only stop, worldly activity can only stop when the mind gets absorbed into Krishna. And when mind gets absorbed, and it is in that absorbed mind, the revelation happens. And essentially, it is through the eyes of knowledge, through eyes of jnana, not ordinary jnana, upasatpurvaka jnana. And that with that jnana, we then are able to perceive Bhagavan, who has always been residing within and who has been our companion forever. Iyate kevalasya swasamstaya hamsaya tasmai shuchi sadmane namaha. To that supreme being who is the embodiment of purity, I offer my prayers to him, he says. Yadan niruktam vachasa nirupitam dhiyakshabhirva manasotayasya mabhut swarupam gunarupam etat savai gunapaya visargalakshanaha. Daksha here now talks about how difficult it is to grasp the infinite. That which is infinite in nature, how can we grasp it with something which is finite? You know, the logic of the finite is inadequate for analyzing that which is infinite in nature. Yadyan niruktam vachasa nirupitam diyakshabhirva manasota. Words are used to describe him, but words after all are material vibrations. And then when we determine his nature using our intelligence, and when we come to ascertain his nature, even that is using our material nature, material intelligence. Any experience that we have through the senses and the mind is also material in nature. Now, all this are subject to the three forces, the three gunas, the words which are material vibrations, whatever is ascertained by the material intelligence, and whatever is experienced through our senses and the mind, they are all subject to the three gunas. Also, as they are subject to three gunas, they have a definite beginning and they have a definite ending. They are fleeting, they are transient, and therefore they cannot convey his swarupa. They are not the swarupa of Bhagavan, they are only his sharira. And he is their cause, and he is also the cause of their destruction. Anything that is caused is destroyed. Anything that is made of Prakriti has a cause, has a beginning and an end. And he is the cause of both the beginning and the end. And if that is the case, with our finite means, it becomes very, very difficult for us to grasp and analyze the infinite. To that infinite being, I offer my prayers, he says, Daksha. Now, why the logic of the finite is inadequate? Because many times the logic that we use with our intellect is not enough to know Bhagavan. It is like, even in mathematics, the infinity, it's very difficult to understand and know infinity. Now, any number is subtracted from the number is equal to 0. But if infinity is to be subtracted from infinity, what is the outcome? Let's think about it. 1 minus 1 is equal to 0, 2 minus 2 is equal to 0, 3 minus 3 is equal to 0. Any number subtracted from the same number is 0. But is infinity minus infinity 0? Not really. Now, let's take the set of all numbers, that is infinity. And let us take the set of all odd numbers, that is also infinity. When we subtract the set of odd numbers, infinity, from the set of all numbers, which is infinity, the answer is a set of even numbers, which is also infinity. So infinity minus infinity is actually infinity. Now, let's take another example. Let's take the set of all numbers greater than 2. And let's take the set of all numbers. The set of all numbers greater than 2 is infinite. The set of all numbers is also infinite. When we subtract the set of all numbers greater than 2 from the set of all numbers, we get 2, not infinity. So therefore, infinity minus infinity can be any number. There can be infinite results, anywhere from 1 to infinity. Therefore, how do we apply our logic, which is finite in nature, to understand that which is infinite in its nature? So, in order to realize Bhagavan, who is infinite in nature, whose nature is infinite, we cannot apply tools which are finite in nature. And that is what Daksha is saying. To that infinite being, I offer my prayers. Yasmin yato yena cha yasya yasmai yatyo yata kurute karyate cha paravaresham paramam prasiddham tad brahma tad denu ananyadekam. Is now talking about how the magic of creation, the mystery of creation. He says, tad brahma tad denu ananyadekam. That Brahman, Narayana, who is the supreme Parabrahman, the Hetu, the cause of all, Ananyat, he has no other cause. Ekam, he is one without second. The cause, Bhagavan, is one. The effect is many. The many emanated from the one, and the one is embedded in the many. Srishti is the one becoming many. Pralaya is the many becoming one. But what is important to understand is the many, which is the outcome of Srishti. When we say the many, the countless Jivatmas and the countless entities of Prakriti, the many which is there as many after Srishti, are all there even during Pralaya. They are, the many is latent in the one. Before Srishti, Bhagavan, when Bhagavan alone, who is the cause, he remains. All the Jivatmas and the entire Prakriti, they are all with him in a subtle state, as is Sukshma Sharira. And Srishti is this Sukshma Sharira becoming Sthula Sharira, subtle becoming gross. So, the many always are there. The one and the many are together all the time. It is just that before Srishti, at the time of Pralaya, the many are all in a state, in a latent state, without their embodiments, in a latent state. And then when Srishti happens, the one becomes many. That's why he says, He is the cause of the many, and the many are inseparable from the one, and they belong to him. And to such a creator, I offer my prayers, Hey Bhagavan. And Daksha continues to go on offering prayers to Bhagavan, and he talks about the various ways in which the Shastras try to understand. He says, the Shastras conceive you, Hey Bhagavan, as one who is formless, as one with form. Sometimes some people conceive you as nameless, but sometimes some people conceive you as with names. Some people conceive you as qualityless. Some people conceive you as with qualities, but we must understand, Hey Bhagavan, you are the one who transcends limitedness and unlimitedness, who transcends the one which is expressible and one which is inexpressible. You transcend that which is describable and that which is indescribable. What is Daksha trying to say here is, when we look at all our Shastras go on the process of trying to enable us, empower us, realize Bhagavan. And in that process, they describe him in three different ways. One, broadly into three categories. One method is the method of denial, negation. Another method is the method of contradictions. The third method is method of describing his qualities. Now, we need to understand all the three, and there are no contradictions or conflicts whatsoever in all the three methods. All the three methods have their own purpose in trying to help us, empower us, become aware of Bhagavan. Now, when we look at the method of negation, no, neti, 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 no, not this, not this, no, he is not this, he is not that. No, Shastras talk about how he is not this, how he is not that. Neti, neti, neti. What the Shastras mean, that he is not this much only, he is not that much only. No, it is essentially trying to tell us that all the negations are negating what he is not, negating all the blemishes, because he is beyond all blemishes, he is beyond all imperfections. So therefore, when the Shastras talk about he being nirguna, he is nirguna because he transcends the gunas of Prakriti. He is beyond heya gunas. He is akila heya pratyanika kalyana ekatana. He is beyond all the heya gunas, all the blemishes, all the imperfections. And in order to bring forth that nature of Bhagavan, the Shastras use the method of negation. The Shastras also use the method of contradictions, because this is where our finite logic fails completely, because Bhagavan's nature cannot be understood, because this is where the Shastras use the method of contradiction. Anoraniyam mahato mahiyam. Anoraniyam, he is the smallest of small, and he is the greatest of the great. He is too near and yet too far. These are contradictions the Shastras use. This is the way essentially to tell us that we cannot easily comprehend him. It is not easy. There is a lot of effort required to know him, to be aware of him. With ordinary mind, it is not easy for us to know him completely. So the method of contradictions, and then there is method of describing his kalyana gunas, with where we can experience him, where the Shastras describe the thousands and thousands of auspicious qualities of Bhagavan, through which we get to experience him, through which we get to know him, through which we get to eventually see him. So thus, Daksha uses all the three methods: the method of negation, the method of contradictions, the method of describing his kalyana gunas, and offers his prayers. Essentially in that process he says, Hey Narayana, you transcend, all limits, and you transcend unlimitedness and limitedness, because limitedness and unlimitedness again is our conception. It is our material conception. Also, he encompasses the describable and the indescribable. We may think words are not enough to describe him. We may also think words are enough to describe him. He encompasses both. And thus, you are that supreme one. The moment Daksha completes his prayers, something magical happens. Narayana is very pleased. Immediately, Shukha recounts to Parikshit. Now, we need to always remember that this, whatever is happening, is within a conversation between Shukha and Parikshit. So, this Haṁsa-guhya stotra of Daksha is embedded within the conversation between Shukha and Parikshit. So, Shukha immediately says, Shukha uvacha, iti stutaha samstuvataha satasmin aghamarshane pradurashit kurusreshtha Bhagavan bhaktavatsalaha. Bhagavan, he is bhaktavatsala. Bhagavan is just waiting for his bhaktas to call out, and he's been listening to Daksha's prayers. Bhagavan is extremely, immensely pleased with Daksha, Shukha says. And pleased with Daksha, Narayana appears in the holy place of Aghamarshana. Iti stutaha samstuvataha satasmin aghamarshane. The place where Daksha was praying to Narayana was a place called Aghamarshana. Then and there, Narayana appeared, Shukha says. How did he appear? Now, this is the beauty here. Daksha in his prayers went at length trying to celebrate the paratva of Bhagavan, the transcendental nature of Bhagavan. Also in the process putting forth how difficult it is to know him, how difficult it is to see him, how difficult it is to conceive him. The outcome of the prayers is so very magical because Bhagavan makes it very simple. How does he appear? Shukha beautifully explains that. Kritapada suparanam se pralambashta mahabujaha chakrashankasi charmeshu tanupasha gadadaraha pitavasa ganashyamaha prasanna vadanekshanaha vanamala nivitangaha laccha shrivatsa kaustubaha mahakirita katakaha suparna makarakundalaha kanchi anguliya valaya nupurangada bhushitaha trailokya mohanam rupam vibrada tribhuvaneshwaraha trailokya mohanam rupam. That immensely enchanting form, that electrifying form of Bhagavan, that divine Divyamangala Vigraha. Bhagavan, it looks like, wanted to put to rest even an iota of doubt in Daksha's mind. When he was talking about how difficult it is to know him and see him, he decided to appear, reveal himself, his true form. That is electrifying. That's so very enchanting, so very magnetic and beautiful. And it seems Kritapadaha, his lotus feet, when he appeared, Kritapadaha Suparanamshe. Bhagavan rushed, mounted on Garuda. Kritapadaha Suparanamshe, mounted on the shoulders of Garuda, with his lotus feet gently placed on the shoulder of Garuda. Ashtamahabhuja Pralambha. He came with specially, this revelation is so very special, not with just 4 arms. Ashtamahabhuja Pralambha, very long, 8 mighty arms. With 8 mighty arms, Ashtamahabhuja Pralamba, Chakra, Shankasi, Charmeshu, Dhanupasha, Gadadharaha, holding all 8 divine weapons, he revealed himself. Pitavasaha Ghanashyamaha, wearing his trademark yellow garments, Pitavasaha Ghanashyamaha, with a form which has a beautiful hue of intense blue, bluish black hue. Prasanna vadanekshanaha, very cheerful with a smile which is so very magnetic. And vanamala vinivitangaha Srivatsa kaustubaha. Daksha could see the Srivatsa mark, and also he could see the Kaustuba gem which was adorned on the chest of Bhagavan. Mahakirita kataka spurat makarakundalaha kanchi anguliya valayanupurangada bhushitaha. With all divine ornaments, Bhagavan appeared, revealed himself to Daksha. Daksha experienced horripilations all over to see Bhagavan rushing to him on Garuda and revealing his original form to him. And Daksha immediately prostrated to Bhagavan, and Bhagavan blessed him and said, "You are now prepared to begin executing your responsibility of multiplying progeny." And Daksha then was blessed and he married Akshini, also known as Panchajani. And Daksha, after marrying Panchajani, begot several sons. Interestingly, as he begot several sons, Narada repeatedly went on preaching to the sons of Daksha. And in that process, Narada kept transforming Daksha's sons. On the one hand, Daksha together with Panchajani was begetting sons. And these sons went to Narada, and Narada was teaching them and making them Brahmagyanis. The outcome being, Daksha's sons refused to participate in the yajna of multiplying progeny, being Brahmagyanis. They bid goodbye to Daksha and went away. Daksha was so very disappointed. But Daksha continued and he begot several other sons. Now Narada did not stop. Narada continued to teach Daksha's sons. And now this time, the more sons Daksha begot, he started to transform them into sannyasis. And Daksha's sons kept going all around. And Daksha was furious. Then Daksha cursed Narada. While you are doing good, Narada, but you are not doing good to me. You are not allowing me to carry out my responsibility. I am a Prajapati, I have a responsibility, and you are preventing me from multiplying progeny. And therefore he cursed Narada, cursing Narada, saying, "From now on, you can never stay put in one place. You will always be forced to keep going all around." Now Narada gracefully accepted Daksha's curse. Now Daksha then begot daughters through Akshini, and these daughters then were duly married to Chandra, to Dharmaraja, and also to several other rishis, and thus Daksha started the process of multiplying progeny. And it is through Kashyapa that several sons were born, or several different kinds of sons were born, different human beings, the Devas, Manushyas, all kinds of celestial beings, all kinds of animals, all kinds of plants, trees, everything, the population of all types, all kinds of beings were multiplied through this process, and thus Daksha performed his duties successfully. What is going to further ensue in the 6th canto, we will see in the next session. Until then, let us contemplate on Haṁsa-guhya stotra, where Daksha celebrates Bhagavan's Paratva, and more importantly, let's contemplate on the appearance of Mahavishnu mounted on Garuda, revealing his glorious form to Daksha. Let us stay contemplating on that glorious form of Vishnu mounted on Garuda throughout the week, and then we will continue the 6th skanda in the next session, next Saturday. Sarvam Sri Krishna Arpanastu.